Most of us were taught that frequent gas and bloating are simply the attacks we pay for getting older, or perhaps just the natural result of eating a high-fiber, healthy diet. You might tell yourself it's normal, yet you find yourself quietly skipping family dinners or church services, fearful of a noisy, embarrassing moment you can't control. But here is the truth. Your standard checkup often misses. Your gut isn't just getting old. It is struggling like a slow-moving conveyor belt that is being overloaded with the wrong fuel at the wrong time. As a physician, I have sat with countless patients who are doing everything right, but still feel like their stomach is a balloon about to pop every single evening. This constant internal fermentation is a silent thief, slowly eroding your comfort and, eventually, your independence, by making you a prisoner to your own digestion. The good news is that your gut isn't broken. It just needs a mechanical adjustment. Today, I will reveal 3 healthy foods currently fermenting in your colon and the one simple error that changes everything. If you're ready to feel light again, comment "ready" below. This is Dr. Eric Whitman. If you have been feeling like your body is suddenly playing by a different set of rules now that you've passed the age of 50 or 60, I want you to know something right now. You are not alone, and more importantly, you are not broken. In my clinical practice, I see patients every single day who come in frustrated, clutching their stomachs and telling me the same thing. Dr. Whitman, I eat the same things I've eaten for 30 years, but now every dinner ends with me feeling like I've swallowed a lead balloon. To fix this, we have to pull back the curtain on the science of the aging gut. We need to understand why the biological machinery that served you so well in your 30s and 40s has decided to slow down, and how that slowdown creates a perfect storm for gas and bloating. Understanding the why is the first step toward regaining your independence and your comfort. To understand why your abdomen feels like it's inflating, we first have to understand the fundamental biological process of fermentation. Think of your digestive tract as a highly sophisticated chemical laboratory. When you eat, your body is supposed to break down food using enzymes in the stomach and small intestine. However, there are certain types of carbohydrates, fibers, and complex sugars that our human enzymes simply cannot break down. These undigested particles eventually reach the colon, which is home to trillions of bacteria known as your microbiome. These bacteria are not your enemies. In fact, they are essential workers. Their job is to eat the leftovers your small intestine couldn't handle. But here is the catch. When bacteria eat, they produce a byproduct. That byproduct is gas. In a healthy, efficient system, this gas is produced in small amounts and moved through the system so quickly that you barely notice it. But as we cross the threshold of 50, several biological shifts occur that turn this normal laboratory process into a runaway fermentation factory. The first major change is motility, or what we call peristalsis. Imagine your intestines as a tube of toothpaste. To get the toothpaste out, you have to squeeze it from the bottom up. Your intestines do this using smooth muscle tissue that contracts in a wave-like motion. As we age, these muscles, like the muscles in our arms or legs, can lose some of their tone and vigor. The squeeze becomes weaker and less frequent. When motility slows down, food sits in the fermentation chamber, your colon, for much longer than it used to. Imagine leaving a bowl of sugar and yeast on a warm counter for 10 minutes. You might see a few bubbles. Now imagine leaving that same bowl there for 10 hours. It will overflow with foam and gas. That is exactly what is happening inside an aging gut. The longer the food sits, the more the bacteria feast, and the more gas they pump into your abdominal cavity. Another factor we rarely discuss in a standard 15-minute doctor's visit is the impact of medications. In the United States, it is very common for adults over 60 to be on at least 3 to 5 different prescriptions. Many of these, ranging from blood pressure medications, like calcium channel blockers, to certain antidepressants and even frequent use of NSAIDs for joint pain, have a hidden side effect. They slow down the gut. Additionally, our thirst signal tends to diminish as we age. You might not feel thirsty, but your gut is parched. Without adequate hydration, the fiber you eat, which is supposed to help you, turns into a thick, stagnant cement in your colon. This further stalls the system, giving bacteria even more time to create that balloon sensation. When this fermentation becomes excessive, it doesn't just cause gas, it causes distension. This is when the actual walls of your intestines are stretched by the pressure of the gas. For a person over 60, this stretching can feel significantly more painful because the visceral sensitivity of the gut often increases with age. This is the fermentation trap. You eat healthy food, it moves too slowly, it over-ferments, it stretches the gut, and you end up in pain, feeling exhausted and discouraged from eating at all. I want to offer you a shift in perspective. You might see ads for miracle cures or total gut resets that cost hundreds of dollars. But the philosophy I teach my patients is different. I call it the operating manual update. Your body is like a classic car. A car from the 1960s is beautiful and powerful, but you cannot treat it the same way you treat a 2024 model. You have to change the oil more carefully. You have to warm up the engine, and you have to use the right fuel. You don't throw the car away because the engine hesitates. You adjust how you drive it. Your gut doesn't need to be fixed or cured. It needs a new set of instructions that respect its current pace. By making small, strategic mechanical adjustments, we can stop the over-fermentation before it starts. Before we dive into the specific foods that are likely triggering your symptoms, I want to help you become the world's leading expert on your own body. I often tell my patients that the most expensive diagnostic test in the world isn't as valuable as a patient who pays close attention to their own patterns. I've developed a 5-point mini-test specifically for the American senior. This isn't designed to diagnose a disease, but to give you clarity of pattern. I want you to ask yourself these 5 questions. If you answer yes to 2 or more, it is a clear sign that your issues are rooted in the combination of excessive fermentation and slow motility. This is what I call the cumulative effect. If you wake up with a relatively flat, comfortable stomach but find that by 4 hours p.m. or 7 hours p.m. you have to change into elastic waist pants, this is a classic sign of fermentation. It means that the gas bank account is building interest with every meal. By the evening, the system is simply overwhelmed. If your bloating were purely about fat, it wouldn't change from morning to night. If it changes, it's gas. In our fast-paced American culture, we often eat while watching the news, scrolling through our phones, or even standing up in the kitchen. When you do this, your body stays in sympathetic mode, fight or flight, rather than parasympathetic mode, rest and digest. Furthermore, eating quickly causes you to swallow air, a condition called aerophagia. For a younger person, swallowing air is a minor hiccup. For someone over 60 with slower motility, that swallowed air gets trapped on top of the fermenting food, creating an immediate and painful pressure. If your bloating hits within 15 to 30 minutes of eating, you aren't just fermenting food, you are trapping air. This is a very specific sensation that many seniors find difficult to discuss. It's the feeling that, even though you've had a bowel movement, the mission wasn't fully accomplished. Clinically, this suggests that the lower part of the colon is sluggish. When stool remains in the rectum or the sigmoid colon, it continues to ferment. This creates a blockage effect where gas produced higher up in the digestive tract cannot pass through, leading to that hard, stone-like feeling in the lower abdomen. Think back to your worst days of bloating last week. Were those the days you stayed seated for long periods, perhaps on a long drive or watching a movie marathon? Were those the days you only had 1 cup of coffee and half a glass of water? The aging gut is extremely sensitive to stagnation. I tell my patients, the gut moves when the body moves. If you notice a direct correlation between being sedentary and being bloated, you have just identified that your primary issue is motility. Your conveyor belt has stopped moving, and the trash is piling up and rotting. This is the pressure release test. If you press on your stomach when you are bloated, and it feels like a drum, firm and tense, that is physical proof of gas pressure. If you feel even a 10% or 20% relief after passing gas or having a small bowel movement, it confirms that your pain is actually pressure. Why does this distinction matter? Because if it's pressure, we can solve it with physics and biology. We don't need a miracle. We need a release valve. I want you to take a moment and really think about these 5 points. If you see yourself in this description, I want you to take a deep breath and relax. The frustration you've been feeling, the why me, and the why now, finally has an answer. It isn't a mystery anymore. It is a predictable biological consequence of how an aging system interacts with modern habits and specific foods. In the next section, we are going to look at the 3 specific healthy foods that are most likely responsible for overfunding that gas bank account. We are going to talk about how to keep the nutrition of these foods without the balloon side effect. Because at the end of the day, my goal as your doctor isn't to put you on a restrictive, boring diet. My goal is to give you the strategy you need to eat with confidence again. You've spent years taking care of everyone else, your children, your career, your community. Now, it's time to learn the new operating manual for your own body, so you can enjoy this stage of your life with energy, lightness, and total independence. Let us move forward and look at the first food that is likely causing your colon to ferment. Now that we have established why your gut feels different after 50, and you've identified your personal patterns through our self-assessment, it's time to get into the heart of the matter. In my years of clinical practice, I have found that most people are unintentionally sabotaging their digestion by eating foods they believe are perfectly healthy. And they are healthy, in a vacuum. But for a gut that is slowing down, these foods can act like a logjam in a river. As your doctor, I would never tell you to stop eating nutritious food. Instead, I want to teach you how to negotiate with these foods, so they provide nutrition without the gas. Let's look at the 3 most common offenders I see in my American patients over 60. In the United States, we are constantly being told to eat more plant-based proteins to protect our hearts and manage our cholesterol. This leads many of my patients to swap their evening steak for a big bowl of chili, lentil soup, or a hummus wrap. While this is great for your arteries, it can be a disaster for an aging colon. This is what I call the protein trap. The issue isn't the protein. It's a specific type of carbohydrate called oligosaccharides, specifically raffinose and stachyose. Here is the biological reality. The human small intestine does not produce the enzyme necessary to break these complex sugars down. In a young, fast gut, they pass through quickly. But in the gut over 60, these sugars sit in the colon for hours. Your gut bacteria see these undigested sugars as an all-you-can-eat buffet. As they feast, they produce massive amounts of hydrogen and methane gas. You don't have to give up your beans, you just have to change how you introduce them. First, if you haven't eaten legumes in months, do not start with a giant bowl. Your microbiome is like a muscle. It needs to be trained. Start with just a quarter cup, 2 times a week, and slowly increase the portion over a month. Second, the 8-12-hour soak is non-negotiable. If you are using dried beans, soak them overnight and, this is the most important part, discard the soaking water. That water contains the very sugars your body can't digest. Rinse them thoroughly before cooking them until they are very soft. A firm bean is a gas-producing bean. Finally, use what we call carminative spices. In my kitchen, I always use cumin, fennel seeds, or ginger when cooking legumes. These aren't just for flavor. They help relax the smooth muscles of the gut and assist in the passage of gas. Many of my patients tell me, "Dr. Whitman, I've had a glass of milk every morning since I was a kid. Why would it bother me now?" The answer is simple. Biology. The most common mistake I see is hidden dairy. You might not drink a glass of milk, but are you putting heavy cream in your morning coffee? Are you adding a scoop of protein powder made from whey to your smoothie? Are you eating light dressings that use milk solids? I challenge my patients to go lactose-free for just 7 days. Swap your regular milk for a lactose-free version or a high-quality almond milk. But don't throw away the dairy aisle entirely. Many seniors find they can tolerate fermented dairy like Greek yogurt or kefir because the active cultures have already pre-digested much of the lactose for you. Also, aged cheeses like sharp cheddar or parmesan have almost zero lactose. It's about being a food detective rather than an extremist. We are told that a big raw salad is the pinnacle of health. But for a 65-year-old gut, a bowl of raw kale, broccoli, and cauliflower can be as difficult to process as a bowl of wood chips. These vegetables contain a complex fiber called cellulose and a sugar called raffinose. Furthermore, they are rich in sulfur, which is why the gas they produce is often particularly fragrant and uncomfortable. The salad misconception is that raw is always better. For your digestion, cooked is almost always better. High-heat steaming or sautéing breaks down the cellulose fibers before they enter your body, essentially doing half the work for your digestive system. The second part of the fix is timing. If you are going to eat broccoli or bap kai, cabbage, eat them at lunch when you are active and upright. Eating a large portion of cruciferous vegetables at 7 p.m. and then sitting on the couch to watch the evening news is a recipe for a sleepless, bloated night. Save the gentle vegetables like cooked carrots, zucchini, or spinach for your evening meal. Beyond what you eat, there is a behavioral error that I see in nearly 90% of my patients. I call it the mechanical overload. This is the trifecta of bloating: large portions, eating too fast, and sedentary behavior immediately after the meal. In America, we are a nation of gulpers. We drink through straws, we talk while we chew, and we rush through our meals. This leads to aerophagia, or swallowing air. If you are 25, your gut can move that air out quickly. If you are 70, that air gets trapped in the kinks of a slower-moving intestine. This is often the primary cause of that immediate bloat people feel within 20 minutes of eating. What do most of us do after a nice dinner? We sit down. We sit to watch TV. We sit to read. Or we sit to browse the internet. When you sit, you are physically compressing your digestive organs. You are essentially putting a kink in the garden hose. For a gut that already lacks muscle tone, this compression stops motility entirely. The food stalls, the air stays trapped, and the fermentation goes into overdrive. I don't want you to just understand this. I want you to feel the difference. I've developed a 72-hour protocol that costs $0 and requires no supplements. It's designed to reprime your system and prove to you that your gut still works. Every morning for the next 3 days, the very first thing you will do is drink 8 to 12 ounces of plain, warm water. Not ice cold, not scalding, just warm, like a cup of tea. Why? This triggers the gastric colic reflex. This is a neurological signal sent from your stomach to your colon saying, "Clear the way, new food is coming." In seniors, this reflex often becomes sleepy. The warm water acts as a gentle wake-up call, encouraging a morning bowel movement and clearing out the fermentation leftovers from the night before. For the next 72 hours, you are forbidden from sitting down for at least 10 minutes after every meal. You don't need to go to the gym or do a heavy workout. Simply pace around your house, do the dishes, or take a very slow stroll to the mailbox. Why? Gravity is your best friend. By staying upright and moving your legs, you are gently massaging your internal organs and helping the conveyor belt of your gut stay in motion. This prevents the sedentary stall and helps move trapped air through the system before it causes pain. This might sound strange, but it is one of the most effective tips I give my patients. When you go to the bathroom, I want you to place a small footstool, about 6 to 8 inches high, under your feet. Why? Humans were designed to squat, not sit on a throne. Sitting at a 90-degree angle creates a bend in the rectum caused by the puborectalis muscle. Elevating your knees above your hips relaxes this muscle, straightening the path for evacuation. This ensures complete elimination, which means less old food left behind to ferment. For these 72 hours, I want you to check the labels of any sugar-free products you use, gum, mints, or fit snacks. Look for words ending in itol, such as sorbitol, mannitol, or xylitol. Why? These are sugar alcohols. They are notorious for being osmotic, meaning they pull water into your gut and are fermented incredibly quickly by bacteria. For a sensitive gut, even 2 pieces of sugar-free gum can cause hours of bloating. For the next 3 days, cut them out entirely to give your gut a silent environment to recover. I want you to realize that none of these steps are miracles. They are simply biological corrections. If you follow this 72-hour plan, you aren't just treating symptoms. You are changing the environment of your gut. You are moving from a state of stagnation and fermentation to a state of flow and efficiency. When my patients come back after trying this, they don't just say their stomach feels flatter. They say they have more energy. They say they feel lighter. They say they aren't afraid to go out to lunch with their friends anymore. That is what this is really about. It's about taking the fear out of the kitchen and putting you back in the driver's seat of your own life. In the final part of our discussion, I am going to talk about the medication connection and the specific red flags you should never ignore. But for now, I want you to focus on the 72 hours ahead of you. You have the tools, you have the science, and most importantly, you have a body that is ready to feel better. Let's move into the final steps of securing your long-term gut health. As we move forward in our journey to reclaim your digestive health, I must address a critical factor that often goes overlooked in the average doctor's office visit. In the United States, we have a culture of a pill for every ill. By the time many of my patients reach their 60s or 70s, they are often managing what we call polypharmacy, taking multiple prescriptions for blood pressure, cholesterol, bone density, or mood. While these medications are often necessary and life-saving, they do not exist in a vacuum. They interact with your digestive system in ways that can turn a normal gut into a stagnant, fermenting one. One of the most common culprits I see in my clinic is iron supplementation. Many seniors are prescribed iron for anemia or fatigue. However, iron is notoriously difficult for the gut to absorb. When you take a high-dose iron pill, much of that metal remains unabsorbed and sits in the colon. It acts as a powerful astringent, essentially tanning the lining of your gut, drying out the stool, and turning it into something hard, black, and stagnant. This stagnation is the ultimate precursor to fermentation. If the stool doesn't move, the gas cannot pass, and the bloating becomes chronic. Similarly, calcium supplements, which are vital for maintaining bone density and preventing osteoporosis, can act like internal cement. Calcium slows down the muscle contractions, peristalsis, of the intestines. If you are taking a large dose of calcium carbonate once a day, you may be inadvertently paralyzing your gut's ability to move food along the conveyor belt. We also have to discuss antidepressants and pain medications. Many common medications for anxiety or depression have what we call anticholinergic effects. In plain English, they dry out the body's secretions and slow down nerve signals to the gut. And of course, opioid pain medications, even those used short-term after a knee or hip replacement, are the gold standard for causing constipation. They bind to receptors in the gut and tell the muscles to simply stop moving. Because many seniors feel ignored by the medical system, they turn to the natural health aisle. You've seen them. Colon cleanses, detox teas, and herbal weight loss blends. Many of these products contain stimulant laxatives like senna or cascara sagrada. Here is the miracle trap. These herbs work by irritating the lining of the colon. They cause a chemical burn that forces the colon to contract violently to expel the irritant. In the short term, you feel cleaned out, but in the long term, your colon becomes lazy. It begins to wait for that chemical irritation to do its job. Over months or years, the nerves in your colon can actually become damaged, a condition called melanosis coli, making you dependent on these natural pills just to have a basic bowel movement. Furthermore, the constant irritation creates more inflammation, which leads to, you guessed it, more gas and bloating. I know how frustrating it is to have only 15 minutes with your primary care physician, PCP. To get the most out of your system, you need to approach your doctor not as a petitioner, but as a partner. When you go in for your next checkup, don't just say, "I'm bloated." Say, "Doctor name, I've noticed that my bloating and gas have increased since we started this new medication. Can we look at the motility profile of my current prescriptions? Is there a different form of iron or calcium that is gentler on the gut, or can we adjust the timing? Bringing a symptom journal that shows the correlation between your pills and your bloating gives your doctor the data they need to actually help you, rather than just suggesting another over-the-counter fix. While 90% of the gas and bloating issues I see are related to the aging gut mechanics we've discussed, as your doctor, I must emphasize that we can never be complacent. Part of being independent is knowing when your body is sending a warning signal that requires professional intervention. In my years of experience, I have seen patients wait too long because they thought a symptom was just gas or just part of getting older. I want to give you the red flag list. If you experience any of these, I want you to set aside the 72-hour reset and make an appointment with a gastroenterologist immediately. Unintentional weight loss. If you are losing weight without trying, meaning you are not on a new diet or exercise plan, that is a significant warning sign. It could indicate that your body isn't absorbing nutrients or that there is an underlying growth in the digestive tract. Blood in the stool. This is a non-negotiable red flag. Whether it is bright red, often indicating an issue near the exit like hemorrhoids, or dark, tarry, indicating an issue higher up in the system, any blood needs to be investigated with a colonoscopy. Fever or chills accompanied by abdominal pain. This suggests an infection or acute inflammation, such as diverticulitis, which is common after age 60. Persistent pain that wakes you at night. Normal gas pain usually subsides when you are horizontal or sleeping. Pain that is strong enough to interrupt your sleep is a sign that something more than fermentation is occurring. Anemia, low iron, on blood tests. If your doctor tells you that you are anemic and you don't have an obvious reason for it, we must ensure there isn't a silent leak in the gut. The priority of safety. Information is empowering, but it is not a substitute for a physical exam or a diagnostic scope. If you have a sudden, dramatic change in your bowel habits that lasts longer than 2 weeks, please get it checked. At 60 plus, the goal is prevention and early detection. A colonoscopy isn't just a test, it is a life-saving tool that ensures your independence for the next 30 years. Now let's bring everything together. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. We are going to take this one day at a time. This is your 7-day gut stability roadmap. Follow this, and by next week, you will likely feel like a different person. The first 2 days are about flow and rhythm. The morning ritual, 12 ounces of warm water immediately upon waking. No coffee, no tea, no food, until that water has woken up your colon. The post-meal walk. Every time you put down your fork, you stand up. 10 minutes of slow pacing. This is the gravity assist for your digestion. The light evening. For these 2 days, your dinner should be your smallest meal. Choose something easily digestible, like a simple chicken soup or baked fish with well-cooked carrots. Avoid all 3 culprit foods, legumes, dairy, cruciferous, during these 48 hours to let the inflammation settle. On day 3, we begin to gently add fiber back, but we do it with precision. I want you to try a small portion of hydrated soluble fiber, such as oatmeal or a tablespoon of ground flaxseed stirred into warm water, or a dairy-free yogurt. Why it works. Soluble fiber acts like a soft sponge that gently sweeps the walls of your intestines. The golden rule: if you add fiber, you must add an extra glass of water. Fiber without water is a brick. Fiber with water is a broom. Today, we test the first healthy culprit. For lunch, not dinner, I want you to have a 1/4 cup of well-cooked lentils or beans that have been soaked for 12 hours. The observation. Pay attention. Do you feel bloated? If yes, was it as bad as before? If you feel okay, you have just learned that you can eat legumes, provided the portion and timing are correct. Today, try a small amount of dairy-free milk or a lactose-free yogurt. Or if you prefer, try a small piece of an aged cheese like Parmesan. The goal. We are looking for the threshold. Many people find they can tolerate 2 ounces of cheese but not 8 ounces of milk. Today is about finding your safe zone. Today we introduce broccoli or cauliflower. But there are 2 rules. It must be steamed until soft, not crunchy, and it must be eaten at lunch. The mechanical shift. By steaming the vegetables, you have manually broken down the cellulose. Notice how much lighter your stomach feels when you don't force it to do all the heavy lifting of grinding raw vegetables. On the final day, I want you to focus on the hidden engine of your gut, your nervous system. Before you take your first bite of every meal today, take 3 deep, slow belly breaths. Why it works? Your gut and brain are connected by the vagus nerve. If you are stressed, your vagus nerve shuts down digestion. By breathing, you flip the switch from fight or flight to rest and digest. Notice if your meals feel lighter simply because you weren't rushed. We have covered a lot of ground today. We've moved from the frustration of the balloon stomach to a deep understanding of the biological shifts that happen after 50. You've learned that you don't need miracles. You need strategy. Your gut is not a mystery. It is a mechanical system that requires maintenance. By adjusting your fuel, how you prepare legumes and vegetables, updating your timing, moving after meals, and respecting your biology, managing medications and hydration, you're taking back the keys to your life. I want you to imagine yourself a month from now. Imagine sitting at a restaurant with your friends or family, enjoying a meal and laughing, without that nagging fear in the back of your mind. Imagine waking up in the morning feeling refreshed because you weren't kept awake by abdominal pressure. This isn't just a dream. It is the result of the small, consistent changes we discussed today. Remember, you are your own best advocate. Don't let anyone tell you that feeling this way is just part of getting old. You deserve to feel light. You deserve to have energy. And you deserve to be independent. If this guide has helped you understand your body a little better, I ask you to do one small thing. Share this message with a friend or a loved one who might be suffering in silence. In our community, we look out for one another. I am Dr. Eric Whitman. Thank you for trusting me with your time and your health. Start with that 1 glass of warm water tomorrow morning, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay healthy, stay active, and stay independent. The biggest danger isn't the gas itself. It's the silent, cumulative stagnation of a digestive system that has simply stopped moving. If you have spent years sitting down comfortably after meals or ignoring that subtle thirst signal, please know it wasn't because you were careless. It is simply because no one ever sat you down to explain that the biological manual for your body completely changes after 60. But here is the comforting truth. You are not a passenger in this process. You are the driver. By making these small mechanical adjustments, you are reclaiming the independence that a bloated stomach tried to steal. You aren't just managing symptoms, you are restoring your rhythm. If this conversation resonated with you today, please just comment, "I am listening" below so I know we are on this path together. I invite you to follow this channel, not for entertainment, but as a protective measure to ensure you never miss these early warnings that the standard healthcare system often overlooks. In our next talk, we will address a silent habit, even more common than bloating, that happens much earlier in the day than you'd expect. I share these insights because I have seen far too many patients who only wish they had known this sooner. I am Dr. Eric Whitman. Stay light, stay active, and stay independent.